Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for another episode of Non-Corporate Girls. We're so excited to be here and we're actually in the studio. So this is a little bit different. So let me introduce our guest who is more than a guest, friend, family. Let me introduce her. As the founder of full service communications consultancy, TWPR, Tequilla White amplifies the stories of diverse, purpose driven brands. Clients including LifeWater, AARP Foundation, CurlFest, CultureCon, and Verizon Foundation have sought her strategic approach to brand storytelling and social impact. A noted speaker, Tequila launched her signature Life's a Pitch workshop to share proven strategies for media outreach success with fellow PR pros and entrepreneurs, one of her many efforts to create space for publicists of color. And today we get to chit chat with our girl. Welcome, Tequila.
Thank you.
Yes. So
Finally.
this
Thank you.
episode is called Life's a Pitch with Tequilla White.
Yes.
And it's episode 122. And fun fact, you are our last guest of the season. So we saved the best for last.
Did.
Grand
Did.
opening, grand closing.
Correct.
So we're going to jump right in. We usually like to start with a positive note. So can you share with our community, what is your positive note for the week or month?
I think it's the top of the month. Spring is trying to creep on out. It just feels like a lot of people around me are having new seasons, new eras. So I think the positive note is like understanding there's a new season amongst us. Like good things are bubbling up, good things are happening. So I would say that's mine.
I love that. What if you could describe your era? What's your era?
This is my get low and build era.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a lot of announcements. It's not a lot of flashiness. It's not a lot of, not necessarily defending yourself, but explaining yourself. It's more so just getting it done and then stepping back and saying, like, this is where I am.
Y'all see the material.
So, yeah, I don't
Okay.
think there's a lot of explanation in this era. It's more so just getting out there and getting it done.
Yeah, like I was saying before, silent moves.
Yeah.
Silent moves.
If you know, you know.
Okay,
Yeah.
we love this for you. All right, so to start, can you walk us through your career journey of how you got started in the public relations industry?
Yes. So, going back to school, I was originally a cultural anthropology major. And so I wanted to study peoples and their backgrounds and how cultures that seem to be really different on the outside, when you examine them and you dig into how they look at family, how they look at religion, how they look at love, a lot of those tenets are the same. So, for example, I know that this past season we had Easter Passover come together. And so a lot of the times people are examining cultures and they're trying to understand and break them apart. But when you really look at the tenets of that, even in Ramadan coming at the same time, all of those things are celebrating similar tenets of their belief systems. And so that really interests me. And so as I began to dig deeper into that, I understood that I would either have to like travel the world and observe cultures and, write my findings on them, or I would be a professor teaching them. I didn't want to do either of those things at that time, but I knew that it was something that really interests me. And so I said, okay, what can I do with the things that I'm already really great at? I'm not shy about, talking to people. I can pretty much convince anyone to do anything. A nature of being from the Bronx, a nature of just having to hustle and talk slick and talk quick. And I love to write. I love to plan events. I love to like be behind the scenes making things happen. So I took a couple of elective. I started with advertising, and that was just too close to visual arts for me. I can more so articulate creativity through my words, but when it comes to like drawing or creative spaces design, that's not really my strong suit. So then I moved on to a PR course, and I was like, okay, this feels like me. We're talking about planning events. We're talking about, building relationships with the media. There's a lot of writing that takes place, and that's something that I love to do. I love to read. I love to write. And so I said, okay, this feels good to me. And from there, once I attack something or I feel like this is a goal that I want, I immediately put a plan together of how I can reach that goal. And so I figured, all right, let's get some internships internships under my belt. I figured learning it in school is fine, but I'm going to graduate soon
Right.
because I was halfway through school when I decided to change my major. So I knew anthropology was what I was going to do. So to have myself do all of this work, I would say, well, I need something to work for me. What of the electives that I've already taken plus what I think I want to do can I put together? And so to push me a little further, I was doing internships for credit. And so I was like, okay, let me try to get closer to the finish line and make up some of this spare time while also getting real world experience.
Right.
And so I did several internships at PR agencies throughout the city. I tried entertainment, I tried fashion, sports, food, anything that I could just get my hands on to see what I really gravitated towards. And so finally, at the end, I graduated, I had my degree, I had my internships, and I said, well, here I am. This should be just easy, simple, right? Not so much. So then I started applying, and it was, well, you don't have enough experience for this role, but you have too much for an internship. So then I kept finding myself in this circle of like, well, how will I get the experience if you don't hire me?
Right.
And you won't hire me because I don't have the experience.
Like, make it make sense.
And
at least.
so I was like, okay, systemic racism hopping in my face again. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine because I'm not a person that takes no for an answer. It's just like, okay, well, thank you so much, but let me figure out how to get to where I need to get to. And so I said, I have dope people in my life that do amazing things. I will use them as my first clients, and I'll learn, and I'll, talk to the media. I'll build my own relationships.
Yep.
So then when I go back, I have a portfolio and I can say, look, I do have the experience.
Right.
I've done the work.
And
I
I did it
have
on my
these
own.
relationships alone. And then here we are 7 years later, never went back. Because I just kept going, and then the brands that I wanted to work with were coming to me, or I was building my own relationships where people were referring me. And so when I came back, it was more of a consultant. So they needed an expert, and I would be able to come and lend my expertise for a particular project. So it definitely was a windy road. It wasn't straightforward at all or direct. The trajectory of my career has taken a lot of different iterations. But I would say once I knew that PR was what I wanted to do, I immediately figured out, how to work the system, and internships were a great way for me to get into the industry and understand what it really was.
Right.
But it just wasn't my path to go the agency route right out of college, or go in-house right out of college. Not out of lack of wanting to, but more so the many barriers to entry that there are in this industry. So that's kind of how I even ended up in it.
Oh my goodness.
And go ahead, what you were going to say?
I was going to say, first of all, can we talk about, there's a lot to unpack. First of all, what you started out in and how you realized like there were some aspects of that you really liked, but wasn't quite sure that's what you wanted to do. And then you like, it's the strategy, I think, for me. Like, you were really strategic about, these are the things I'm good at, and this is how I can apply it here, and this is now the course I want to take, which is really interesting because, a lot of people that come to our brand, they really want to figure out how do they connect those dots.
Yeah,
like
transferable skills.
Exactly. The biggest thing we talk about here. What were you going to say?
No, and I was going to say the storytelling aspect, because sometimes we don't realize how, like, our background expertise, like, you loved anthropology, but there was a circle back moment because that still was fitting to PR. And then insert the time of social media and accessibility, right? Because you did mention the whole systemic racism, which is very much well and alive, but then we are able to create more of our opportunities because of the access we have because of just the internet alone. Like, people just need a laptop and Wi-Fi,
that's it,
and you're good to go.
And doing the work.
And doing
I
the
mean,
work
that
with
is...
you. And, we have to repeat it constantly, but that goes without saying that you have put yourself out there. And so now, we know from your experience being Black and brown in certain fields can leave us as the quote-unquote only ones in spaces, which often force us to fight to be seen. As a Black woman in PR, is there a moment you can share with us when you were forced to advocate for yourself, and how has that carried you through your career?
Every day, because there's so many layers to me. And so when I show up on a call, I'm not only a Black woman, I'm a Black woman that's running my own consultancy. So I'm not coming from a large agency. I'm also a Black woman that reps a lot of brown and Black clients. So if I'm working with a larger brand, I might be the only Black woman face on that Zoom call, right? Or in that Teams call. And so me showing up in itself is pushing back. Me advocating for myself, me saying, actually, I'd like to be on that call, put me on that calendar invite. I'm actually going to be accompanying to the client to that. So please make sure I'm on the list, asserting myself on calls, speaking up when something doesn't rub me the right way, saying, I don't really think we should move that route. And here's why, not based off of an emotional argument, off of my expertise, off of what I know to be true in the industry, what I know to be best practice, and listening to others and taking into account how they feel, also does work for whatever they have in their mind of preconceived notions when they see my name perhaps on an email signature or my photo, or they might, hear my tone of voice on an audio. But when we get up on that screen, I'm here with that same energy. I'm advocating for myself. I'm advocating for my client. I'm pushing back on rates, my own rates or rates for my clients. I'm showing up prepared. I'm showing up on time. I'm adding to the conversation. I'm not just sitting back and listening. If someone asks, do you have any questions? I do have questions. If they have anything to add, I actually do have something to add, because I'm in the room not just for myself. And so I understand when I show up to an event in hoops and a do-rag, that's saying something about who I am and where I'm from and how I don't have to look a certain way to be taken seriously or as a professional. Because that's not true, because we know our white counterparts show up to work looking any old kind of way that they like, and people still respect them, still pay them well. So there should be no reason that me showing up, with a certain style that is an extension of my culture or who I am should be any reflection upon my professionalism. And so I do a lot of things strategically, of course, and deliberately to show up and make space in a room. When I show up, I shake hands with whomever I meet. I get names. I look people in the eye. All of those small things that people don't really think about, I always make sure to do, because I'm always going to be the only something in a room. Unless I'm in rooms like this, which I love the most,
Of course.
9 times out of 10, I'm going to be showing up to a room where I might be the only something, either woman, either Black woman, either gay woman, run down the list.
Right.
And so I think it's really important for me to show up even when I don't feel like it, because it's bigger than me,
You touched on, I heard a lot of authenticity come from what you just said, right? And I think for a lot of people, showing up authentically in any space is really hard. Has this always been how you, I feel like I know the answer to this because we know you, but has this always been how you operate, or did you have to exercise and really learn how to do this for yourself?
I think it was always in me, and it just grew with my confidence. It grew with my personal confidence, but also with my professional confidence in terms of getting things done and having numbers on the board to be able to say, like, no, I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
In the beginning, I didn't have much to show, and so I just had to depend on my personal confidence of knowing who I was as a person. But once I started to do the work and know that, I could go up against any other publicist and get hits and do what I need to do, it started to become easier for me. But definitely, fresh out of college, when it wasn't, TWPR, it was just, hey, do you need PR? I could be your publicist. Of course, there was times where it was harder for me, but I always knew who I was. And so I would never let anyone disrespect me. I would never let anyone belittle me or call my business small. I would always know who I was. So that carried me through as I began to gain the skills and the numbers on the board to match the energy that I had for myself.
And that's real.
Love it. Professional and personal confidence. I love that. All right. So there's often, and you touched a little bit on this, there's often a misconception about Black PR professionals only being able to pitch for Black-owned brands. Can you share your thoughts on that and the importance of having Black PR professionals across various brands versus just Black-owned? And how have you been able to ensure that your clients' representations are aligned with your personal values and beliefs?
Yes. Okay. So I think it's silly to think that only Black publicists can pitch Black clients or Black events or multicultural campaigns, because it's short-sighted, particularly when you're coming into marketing. You're understanding that diverse ideas and understanding diverse perspectives only strengthen your marketing campaigns, because other folks see themselves reflected, and you're able to have a marketing campaign that checks off so many boxes, which helps the end goal, which is to make money. So if you're cutting out a large portion of your audience or not doing enough research to understand who your audience is, or you are kind of bucketing all of your audience into one group and saying, well, Black people all feel like this, and not being smart enough to have people on your team to say, well, I'm a Black woman, and so this doesn't speak to me. Or having a Black man on your team say, well, this speaks to me, so maybe we need to have multiple versions of this. Now, you're missing that conversation if everyone in the room looks and sounds and feels the same or experiences life in the same way, because now we are cutting off a portion of our audience or a portion of our marketing campaign that could really be successful for us. And I think that when you have diverse teams, that only adds, that never subtracts, that never takes away anything. But not having them does the adverse. It is a disservice to you. It's a disservice to your audience. It's a disservice to your stakeholders, because, as investors, you're thinking about how many pieces of the pie can I get, as much as I can get. So if you have someone that you're investing in, or a business that you're investing in, that is either deliberately or indeliberately cutting out sectors of your audience, now we have to look at our bottom line and seeing how that's being impacted. And over and over and over again, we're seeing brands have missteps in either not trusting their diverse employees or not having them there at all. And we're constantly dealing with these crisis calm situations that they're having to apologize for missteps that we wouldn't even need to really be here in the first place if you had a room of diverse minds to say that could offend a group because I'm a part of that group, or I'm not a part of that group, but my community is. And so let's take another look at that. Or let's put this in front of someone who's a part of said group and see how they react. But when you're working in kind of this chamber of silence, or this chamber of, letting things slide, or not feeling like you need to have the tough conversations, it's reflective in the output of these campaigns. And so I think that it can only help your brand grow, and it can only support diverse stages of thinking. And so diversity is not always within race. We can discuss class. We can discuss cultural background versus I grew up in a city versus I grew up in the suburbs. Those are two different life experiences. They can both be Black people, but they live a very different life. And so the way that we market to them is going to be different. When you're working with folks who have more of a homogenous type of culture or lack thereof, they don't understand the nuance. And so I think that me representing clients both on a national side, a global side, corporate brands, have only helped them to grow. And I've only helped them to understand how to approach marketing in a way that is not only inclusive, but it's also from a holistic point of view. So I'm thinking about how the brand is showing up externally everywhere, not just on this particular ad, but what are the models on the social campaign doing? Who are the creators that we're reaching out to? Because those don't look diverse. Like, you cannot have an ad running on television saying one thing and your other channels aren't saying the same. How are layoffs working at your company? How's the executive team looking? So all of those things have to match.
You can't just address one part of it and then it doesn't carry through.
And all of those are extensions of PR. And so when you have someone in the room that has, the foresight to understand these things, you're already on the up and up. Because when you come forward with a recommendation on a campaign, perhaps, I'm already thinking all of these things. Because I understand how they all work and how they have different touch points for the customer versus someone else who might be like, yeah, that's a great idea, let's go for it. And never ask any questions, never put it in front of anybody else. And that's when time and time again, we constantly see these brands having to apologize.
Like, they're not getting it right.
And I'm glad you mentioned it, because it's funny, like, I feel like 10, 15 years ago, the way PR and marketing operated, they were very much a silo, but it just doesn't make sense to operate over here in the corner when you literally need to touch all these aspects, whether it's the sales team, the account team, affiliate, whatever team, it has to be in a holistic way. So I feel like a lot of PR professionals don't come often with that lens. And so that definitely sets you apart.
Absolutely.
So I love that.
I mean, first of all, so many things set you apart, right? I was just thinking,
you're one of one.
I was like, can you duplicate yourself? Like, how?
No, the sauce is the sauce.
The sauce.
So,
and talking about the sauce,
I know.
Okay? Because the next question goes more into your Life's a Pitch program, which is like your sauce brung share with the world. What inspired the creation of this program? And out of your strategic framework, what would you say is the number one piece of advice you want your students to take away?
So Life's a
participate?
Pitch is a 6-week accelerator and masterclass. And so in the accelerator, we're working with business owners very early, maybe 1 to 3 years in,
Okay.
or early early PR professionals, comms professionals. Maybe they just graduated, they have an internship or two, but they are trying to really grow their business or become stronger communications professionals so that they can be hired. So those are the two buckets of audiences. And
Okay.
so I'm finding a gap as I work with clients, that there are buckets of clients who are ready to go. They have their assets prepared. They know what they need. They may have a campaign coming up that they need PR support on. They perhaps have bios. Like they don't have everything, but they have enough for me to get started. And then there's that smaller part that they understand PR. They understand that they need marketing. They understand like they have a business that they want to grow, and marketing is going to get them there, but they don't quite have their materials together. So they might not have high-res headshots or product images. There might not be a website that is up to date or refreshed. Social might be a little messy, not clear. They might not have, clear a brand guide perhaps to say like, this is how we show up. They might not have spokespeople. They might be like, I'm the founder and this is just my business and what I want. And so they are, one, not prepared for my services, but two, in terms of the investment, they can't quite afford to hear the things that are going to take work and funds to build. So when you come to me in the beginning, if you don't have these things, I cannot do my work. So we now have a photo shoot for you guys. That's money. So we have makeup, we have hair, we have wardrobe, because I'm going to make sure you're looking the way you need to look. So there we have that. Then we have your website. Is that up to date? Okay, so now we have to do a web design. If we have social, that's a whole nother human being. You need to call Carla Renee up and get Corinne Digital on the line, because that is not my bag. All of these things add up. And so they are critical in terms of marketing what I need and the support that I need. However, they're luxuries when you come to talk about, once again, systemic racism and the barriers of entry to Black and brown folks trying to grow businesses. So we don't have the flexibility to call, Uncle Brad up and say, hey, I'm starting this new X, Y, and Z. Could you front me a few thou? No, that's not how it works. We're also trying to build our own families or have our own 9 to 5s or 5 to 9s coming together. And so I think that the importance of understanding that and figuring out, how can I fill the gap? How can I be of service? Because I'm also trying to build a business. So I can, of course, take them at a rate that's lower than what I know to be of my worth. However, there is something that I can do to fill the gap, to tell them, this is what you need. This is how you build a pitch. This is how you build a media list. This is how you grow relationships with the media. This is what's needed in your business, or great job with this, but let's work on that. And so the cohort is only 10 folks a cohort. And so I'm able to really dig deep into their business week to week, 6 weeks. We have hour sessions that we do as a group where we're all able to build community. And maybe someone is like, oh, I know a photographer that just did my shoot. Maybe I can give them to you. Or, I know a person that can do web design for you. And by the end, my goal is to really have them be able to say, I couldn't afford TWPR to come on at a retainer, but I was able to land a placement in Ebony, a placement on Pix 11, on NBC4, that helped to grow my business and bring money to my business, so that maybe next year I could just have TWPR do everything. But for now, I have the tools that I need to at the least get a little bit of traction. And so that's my way of a happy medium, still being of service, but understanding that this is an extension of the barriers that we have. And so what can I do to not, of course, drain my resources, because it takes time to work with clients on a day-to-day, but this is something, a little piece of me that I can give them on a week-to-week basis. So I'm really, really, really excited about it. I think that it's going to help a lot of people. And so I think the thing that I would want them to walk away with most is that, these placements on Good Morning America, Today's Show, Essence, Wall Street Journal, these don't just happen by happenstance. I want them to understand by week 7, when they're out of it, this is a lot of work. This is like not easy. This is not just based off of who you know. This is based off of what you can do and the relationships that you have built. Your assets. Like if you have a great story, but there's no website or social's not up, I can't do my job. So I think selfishly want them to walk away with a little more appreciation for publicity, for marketers, for social media strategists, and understand that we create things out of thin air. Like, we look at what you have and we create strategy and implement that. And that takes time and years to really hone. And so I want them to, of course, have the tools to be able to help themselves, but also understand the work that goes into marketing these businesses.
Oh, you couldn't not say
I was
that more
like,
perfectly.
beautifully said, especially because you're demystifying what it looks like to be in PR. Because
pulling back
people
that
have
curtain, they have no idea.
this glamorized version, like what?
Asking for baby showers,
Right.
Not baby showers. Like, how's that gonna help the business?
Right. It's just the people that want PR and have nothing to publicize.
There's no story.
There's no story. So, like, come correct with the story, and you're gathering the people. You're doing God's work.
I am.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the role of publicists. How do you really see that evolving in the current media landscape? And what strategies do you use to stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah. I would say social change is everything.
Okay.
And so as we see media layoffs and companies shutting down daily, the tenets of publicity around media relations, around getting the story, now have to be shifted. It doesn't mean the story doesn't matter anywhere. I don't see a Wall Street Journal, New York Times. I don't see any of them going away anytime soon. So it's always important. The story is always important. But the mediums are now different and allow you so much more space, because what could be only a one-way in if you didn't have a connection, now you can go to their social manager and say, can we do something, a real series? Can we do something on TikTok? Can we do a LinkedIn Live? Like, there's so many other different opportunities to tell stories and bring people together and foster community. But because they're so fleeting and they change so quickly, strategies have to be a lot more flexible, because what strategy you have for Twitter last year, you do not have this year.
Right.
And so if you hang your hat so much on social and you don't have your assets together, then now we have a mismatch and we have an imbalance. And so I would say PR has evolved just by the nature of how people communicate and understanding you have to be a lot quicker than you used to be, because one tweet shuts it all down. So all you need is one tweet to unravel the whole thread. And if you haven't responded in a certain amount of time, now we're dealing with crisis comms, and now it's a bigger problem. And so social, on one hand, has done a great job at building community, but on the other hand, it has kind of tarnished the publicist's ability to control the message, because we're no longer in control. We're always reacting, because we're no longer, able to quiet it down or hush it. Once it's out into the world, once someone has that video, once someone said, oh, well, I heard such and such, now it's out into the wild, and you just have to get the flames down. And so I understand that you have to know a little bit of crisis comm. Every public relations professional, it doesn't matter if you're doing the most low risk thing,
right?
Because you're dealing with human beings at the end of the day. So these brands are not brands; they are a bunch of human beings working together. So they are faulty. And so if you do not have the strength and the flexibility, and you're not agile as a communicator, you're not going to be able to be successful in this industry anymore, because of a number of things, namely not having, outlets to even pitch anymore. So you might have a friendly or a relationship that you've been working with for a number of years that is now laid off. And so if you only put all your eggs into owning that relationship or being just a media relations professional, now when we're not having that avenue or lever to pull, now we're not able to be quick to move. And so I made sure to always be agile in terms of what I know to be true, and having people in my arsenal to call. So if I do have a social question, I have someone on hand. If I do have any questions around visuals, around photography, videography, whatever I need, if I don't know it myself, I always lean into an expert. And I think that is really the key. Like, that's really what you need to be able to be adaptable in any industry, particularly when it comes to marketing, PR, communications.
No, that is so awesome. And also to add is the consumption, right? The way we consume things, everything's so fleeting. Like, you could be working on whatever project for months and it dissipates
especially if there's talent related to it. They might be great in 1 month and either a scandal, or they're not as hot a few months down the line. So if you're not hopping onto trends and activating quickly, you're going to get lost in the shuffle of everyone else trying to scream.
So now speaking to that a little bit, it's kind of going out of our question, but to the same likeness of, having your peace and your balance and staying on trends, but knowing what makes sense and when to pull back. How do you kind of navigate that? Because people want to always stay relevant, but sometimes it's your season to speak up, and other times it's your season to step back.
Yeah. There's a couple of ways. One is like, are you the expert in this? So do you represent this community? There's a checklist. Like, do you represent this community? Have you spoken on this issue before? If you have, in what ways?
Okay.
Who has spoken about it from your team? Because there might be people that are better suited.
Right.
What is the risk factor? So if we don't do this, will we lose anything? If not, let's not. If we do this, what could we possibly do? If we do it and it goes wrong, perhaps.
Right.
What's the risk factor? Because you don't always want to be in the mix. Sometimes it's best to get out of the way because that could be brewing or coming with something that your brand doesn't want to be associated with. So making sure that you're not only looking at, the aesthetics or looking at the vanity metrics, but you're really looking about like, how do people feel about
The
this
impact.
person? How is this person impacting a community on a national level, a global level, a local level? What do they represent? What are their morals? Because when it talks about purpose, because CSR, social impact, is my lane, my niche, so to speak, and that could apply to any industry because purpose should be a through line through all of your business if you're doing your business right.
Agreed.
And so when you're thinking about that and you're thinking about what feels right to you, you know when you're reading something or you're finding out that talent is associated with a campaign and that feeling you get of like, them, I don't know. If you feel any little bit of that, if it's not a no, at least do some more research because there's something to it. And we've seen, like I said, time and time again, folks invest their time and energy into representing things that are trending, but they're also fleeting. And so, you can't unring a bell. So once you've already put your stamp on something that you are pro or against something, it's very difficult to get people to unfeel that feeling again versus not speaking about it at all.
Got it. No, that makes total sense. And you kind of answered this next question already in a way, but I'm gonna ask it anyway, but I have something to add to that just came to mind. So how do you navigate the potential conflicts between your clients and the media, especially when dealing with sensitive or controversial issues? But the thing I wanted to add was, how we always hear the statement, oh, their publicist didn't get to it, or why are people always blaming the publicist, and what's happening in the background that people don't understand in the forefront? That at the end of the day, like you said, we're humans and it's human error. They don't have to listen to their publicist, right? But then how do you make sure that there's a clean slate for your name, and because people are not judging you for a lack of your work ethic or what you didn't or didn't do?
Yeah, I think that it's always important to look at the source of your information. And a lot of people are just reading, but they're not doing any comprehension. The comprehension part of reading comprehension is not there.
Lacking.
And so a lot of the times, if anything comes my way, I look at the source of the person bringing it to me. So if I'm looking at the source and the source has nothing to show for themselves, I know that I don't have to defend my actions because they weren't my actions. And so I believe in church and state when it comes to my work in a couple of ways. Now, when it comes to will I represent anyone that doesn't have my moral system or doesn't have the tenets of belief that I have in? No, I will not. Now, when it comes past that, there are certain things that I wouldn't do, but it's not necessarily because they're bad or they're immoral or they hurt anyone. They're just not my style. And so when it comes to that, I advise the client based upon what my retainer and my invoice says. And so when it comes to campaigns, when it comes to publicity, when it comes to brand partnerships, when it comes to the things that are within my control and my scope to control the best that I can, to build strategy, to provide recommendations, to execute, I do so. When it comes to personal lives and what they choose to do outside of the time and the activity that we are working together, that is not my concern nor responsibility. And so when you're dealing particularly with talent, and a lot of times they want to blame a scapegoat, a manager, a publicist, they want to have someone to blame, that is skirting accountability. And so you have to look at, once again, the source. So let's say you have a group of fans, perhaps, that are blaming teams. That's an extension of the talent. And so they understand that talent to maybe be seedy or maybe not be trusting or run through managers or publicists, not really have a good rapport on them, because that's when things leak. Versus there are certain, like a Beyonce, so to speak, you will never hear anything from her camp.
Right.
Because she has people around her that she trusts.
Mhm.
And so when things leak, it's not because the publicists didn't do their job. Perhaps they are doing their job. And so sometimes things need to come out in order for things to be fixed. And so there's always more to the story than what people see. And so, I always, because I do this work, I always can kind of see through and
Kris
understand.
Jenner. Can we speak on
an icon? Okay.
Love her.
An icon. Now, when we talk about crisis comms, when we talk about being able to spin, when we talk about being able to take a negative and put it to a positive, strategic minds, brand partnerships.
Feeding you what you thought that it was a mistake, but it's like, no, this was intentional.
Correct. Mm-hmm. But making you feel like you're part of it. You're a part of it.
So good.
That's the master. So I would say when you're worried about stuff like that, you really have to trust the source, and you have to understand that you're only seeing a really small piece of a very large operation, because behind that curtain, it's not just publicists and managers. We have lawyers. We have management agents. We have a lot of people who have vested interest in this talent. And so when you have certain things come out, it helps certain people and hurts other people. Mm. And we see that also time and time again, where after there's a scandal, a lot of people change their teams. Mm. So, there's a lot of tricks at play. But like I said, I only concern myself with what I'm responsible for. Right. And I am not anyone's babysitter, parent, to be able to tell them what they can or cannot do, which is why I stay away from talent a lot of the time, because it can get taxing on your mental health. Absolutely. For sure.
Absolutely. That makes total sense.
I love that you broke that down too, because whenever something happens, people are so quick, right? Yes. And they don't understand there's a team of people involved. Mm-hmm. Like PR is one facet of that. And like they're already quick to blame. So I love that you broke that down, because people need to know.
They do.
They sure do. All right. So you've worked on some great campaigns. Yes. Can you share some of the campaigns that you've worked on with the community and what made them so successful?
Yeah. I would probably say community-wise, Curl Fest would probably be the thing that came to mind. Okay. So they came back last year after a little bit of a break due to the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't bring back their major festival for their first coming out. They brought a smaller version, which was Curl Fest Roller Set. Mm-hmm. And so it was a really cute spin on the name. It was a roller skating party in Prospect Park in Brooklyn. And so they tasked me with helping them with their comeback messaging and then a larger strategy to support the event. And so that was really exciting, because it's a name that is really important to my community, and a name that has built a brand around fostering community and highlighting different versions of what Black women can be, of what Black people can be, which is definitely something that I always want to do. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to help them craft messaging around why they were gone for so long, what they have coming up, and then, of course, the announcement of the new event. Mm-hmm. And so that was great. And I really, really was proud of the kind of varied amount of media coverage that we were able to get. So we had some local news come out on the ground. We had some national news cover the comeback, cover the event. We had some broadcasts. So I really was glad to make that splash, because, it's difficult to take time off and it's an event series, because there's always going to be a new event series cropping up, and they don't corner the market on natural hair. Right. And so it was nice to see not only the community support their comeback, but the media also be really excited about, the storytelling around the history of roller skating in our communities and why it was specifically chosen to be that event. The importance of having a community event still in Brooklyn when so many people are having events in other spaces that aren't accessible to the community. Mm-hmm. So making it something that you can come to and bring your entire family and skate if you wanted to, or dance if you wanted to, or have Black-owned vendors there. So it was so many tenets of who I am as a person coming to life. And I was able to work with people that I love. So I think that was one of the ones that really was kind of my reminder. There's certain projects that I work on that I'm reminded, like, this is why you're doing this work. And it centered me right in the middle of something that I feel like only I could have really pulled off, you know?
Yeah, it was at the intersection of everything you're amazing at. Plus all the people that flew out from out of state that came because the Curl
really
Fest,
cool.
like, namesake is a strong brand. Yeah, so that was cool the way you guys came back.
Question though, do you ever when you have your clients and your workload, do you find a balance between the things that really pull you in and give you the passion, like the Curl Fest campaign, versus something else that may not give it to you as much, but it still fits into like
Okay. There's definitely, levels to not necessarily my passion, but connection to things. So like a Poetry Me Please, which is a poetry showcase here in the city. That's something that I was really passionate about and something that I was really excited to work on. We have a lot of, connections. We're both from the Bronx. He's a former educator. My mom was a former educator. So there's lots of things that we believe to be true, which makes me only want to go harder for the client. But it's not to say that if there isn't a personal connection to a client, I won't find ways to win for them. It just is more fun when you feel like, you want to pull up more for them because, like I said earlier, it's bigger than me. It's more of an extension. So when I win, he wins, or when he wins, I win because we're putting on for where we're from.
Yes.
I love that. Oh my God, this is, first of all, you're like a wealth of PR knowledge. I mean, like, I'm fascinated.
And we know T personally, but just having this sit down and getting this version of you is always
like a mini masterclass.
Yes. Try to drop a little gems on people.
So we are like almost at the end, which is crazy. But before we jump into like our fun little game, we want to know, with the demand of your workload, how do you balance it with self-care? Like, how do you prioritize you?
I understand this is my job, and while the company is called TWPR, I am not TWPR. That is something newer. I took a sabbatical last year.
Yes.
And so from that time, I've shifted my complete mindset into like focusing on what matters to me, what makes me happy, what brings me joy, spending time with my loved ones. If it is work, maybe doing more work that the retainer might be lower, but it brings me joy.
Yeah.
So it's still work, but it doesn't feel as much like work. Or traveling a lot more. I really understand that, my legacy doesn't only have to be my work. It's going to be a large part of my legacy, and I hope it to be. However, there's so much more to life than work, than money, than, obviously those things are critically important to the quality of life we're able to have. Right. But being able to have one at all in itself is something to celebrate. And so I really try my best to, when I feel myself working too much, try to pull myself out of it. I have people in my life that will tap me and be like, all right, let's pack it up. Let's slam the laptop down.
And I feel guilty for it.
Yeah.
No, like I always know this is PR, not ER. Like, no one's going to die.
Okay.
No one's dying. It's not life or death.
It's the catchy one-liners for me.
Put it on our shirt.
Yeah, like I'm understanding that more and more. Like the email will be there in the morning.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can do about it right now in this very second, because a lot of my work is putting pieces together, but not necessarily bringing them to life. I need partners to say yes or no.
Yeah.
And so I can't control it all. And so letting go a little bit of that control and just understanding, like, you have to take care of yourself to be able to service your clients. If you're not at your best, or you're short with them, or you haven't slept, or you're not eating, you're not going to be able to deliver the results that you really want to deliver. So it starts first with taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And this is not work to be done alone. It really
takes a team.
And for those people that are trying to do it alone, don't.
No. A tribe of people to lean on, for sure.
Tribe. Oh my gosh. This is great. So, #obsessed with.
Yeah.
We want to know, is there a person, place, thing that you are feeling lately and that you're just so obsessed? We need to know.
Right now I'm obsessed with Life's a Pitch.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's launching next month officially. And I think that just the more I talk about it with people, like every time I describe it, I get more and more excited because I know the impact that it's going to have. And I'm just obsessed with what it represents. Like it's an extension of me and all the work that I've put in. But it's also just another nod to me knowing who I am and understanding my assignment to serve and to have an impact on my community and give them the tools that they need, as opposed to just saying, hire me. Saying like, let me help you. Let me teach you something so that you can teach somebody else that maybe can't afford my course. Because I know there's tons of levels. There's people who can't afford my retainer. There's people who can't afford like a pitch. And then there's people that just, they're trying their best and doing the best they can. So if maybe a couple of the pieces that I teach them can help them or give them some pieces to grow their business and grow their families, perhaps, that just really makes me feel whole. So that's really what I'm obsessed with right now. I'm obsessed with
And you created for yourself what you wish you had when you were
I was
seeking
just
it.
gonna say it's full circle
Yeah.
because when you were interning and you were trying to get into these roles and they were like, you don't have the experience, and you're like, okay, now you're setting everybody else up.
What would be the excuse now?
No
Yeah.
excuses.
There should be absolutely
I
none.
love this. I love this for you. All right. So our game, we have a fun little game.
Okay, let's do it.
Yes, I'm excited about this one.
Yes.
This is probably one of my best games.
Favorite games?
Yeah, because I tailored it. It's called Let's Pitch Tea.
Okay, pitch me.
All right. So if we're gonna pitch you, what publication will you want to be featured in?
It depends on what the story is. I think perhaps a fast company because it's about innovation, innovative business models.
That's a good one.
And I think that would fit me because I did it my way.
Love it.
Okay.
And what would be your current breaking news story?
I mean, there's just so much happening.
What are we breaking news on?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know whether to say the new crib or the new ring.
Ooh,
Hey,
or both.
I love that.
It could
The
be
crib or
both.
the
I think that's
ring.
pretty breaking.
Yes, that is newsworthy. Headliners. Who are you giving an exclusive to? Person in media or network? You can choose. Like, who will you give your exclusive to?
I feel like Good Morning America.
I love a good.
Yeah.
You like Good Morning America.
Yeah, I mean, I love
family.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. Who would you have a one-on-one sit down tell all with?
That they're telling me it all?
That you're telling them
all.
You're all. You're tell it all. Because we're pitching you, remember?
Okay, so who would I want? Who do I respect as a journalist?
Correct.
It's tough.
Tough. Maybe Robin Roberts.
Yes.
Love
Robin.
her.
And I had a feeling you
I'm
were
obsessed with her.
Yeah, maybe Robin Roberts. If Barbara was still with us, that would be great. Tamara Hall, perhaps.
She
I
gets to
respect her.
the truth.
I respect her. Yeah, I think those would round out. Those would
Okay.
round out, yeah.
Or
Angie Martinez.
Yes.
Down for the BX. Wait, so now because you asked, who would you have a sit down tell all? Like, you're the one conducting. Who would you have in the hot seat? If you could choose.
Kanye Omari.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we got to chat.
We
got to chat.
We got to chat.
I have questions.
Hit us up. We'll get you guys connected.
Yeah, I need answers.
Hit our people. So
Yeah.
tell your people.
All right. Will your story be on local or national news?
Oh, local, of course.
Local, yes.
Bronx 12.
Okay,
for the people.
BX12. I love that. Who are 3 people who you want in attendance at your press conference? You gotta be there, front and center.
Only 3?
I mean,
only
only
3.
Yeah, 3. We have to make it a
Only
little
3.
challenging.
Top 3.
Top 3.
Okay,
Everybody
top
else is
3.
like, they're gonna get a pass, but
My wife.
Yes.
It's hard because I don't want to say anybody, and then they're like, "Why you didn't say me?"
they'll be fine.
I'm
Okay.
They're
like,
fine.
Okay, so probably my wife, Carla,
Mm-hmm.
and probably Jalen, because those are like my girls,
the
and they're my
core.
media girls too. So they
Core.
would be like
You
understanding.
know,
of
Jalen would
Yeah.
get gap.
Yeah, if I need
Yeah.
any back because I can't. I'm the talent, so I can't be backstage. So I
right.
need someone. So that would feel good.
All right, cool.
that's a good core.
I like that. And then how would you begin your first official statement when addressing the public? Like, how will your statement begin? Or what will you like?
What are you going to open with?
Correct.
Okay. Oh, I have the statement info. I said what I said.
That is the drops mic.
That's the statement.
What was reported? is what
Quote
I say.
me.
I'm like,
Quote
we
me.
can end
Quote me.
there. That's it. No.
I love it. Wasn't that such a cool game?
That was the best.
It was.
That was the best.
That was,
the
I
best.
think that's actually one of our best games. And literally, we curate different games
I
for
need
every
the clip
guest.
though, so that when I get Fast Company, I can put it before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we got you.
You
We
already
got you.
know.
Manifestations.
So at the beginning of the episode, Delilah introduced you. And now that we're at the end, we want you to introduce yourself to our guests and where they can find you.
Okay, cool. Hello. Well, hello to everyone. I'm Tequilla, and you can find me at tequillawhitepr.com and Tequilla White PR on Instagram as well. And you can sign up for Lisa Pitch there.
Yes. And this
Yay.
is not the end. This is always just, a catch-up session with the girlie.
Oh, yes.
But we're always here to support and
Yes.
definitely have to have a conversation on, as we embark on our new journey.
Absolutely. New era.
And we are so grateful and blessed that you blessed us with your presence on this pod. Like I said, you are the 43rd guest.
Yeah.
You are the last guest for season 6. And I think that's a great way to close out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Later.
Peace.
Bye.